Hey everyone, Chakras here. Today, we're looking at G2 versus Gen G, more specifically, the level 1s in that BO5. If you watched that quarterfinals match, you might have noticed that G2 burned a flash from a Gen G player in all 3 games. This immediately caught my eye, and G2's coaching staff even tweeted about it, so I was wondering how much of this was good prep from them, and how much of this was just really obvious tendencies from Gen G's side. In Game 1, G2 invade the bot side jungle with 4 members. They had Pantheon's stun, Jin's W, and TF Gold card to make a pick happen, but Volibear flashed out immediately. In Game 2, Tahm Kench spots Leona and Ashe around the bot Tribrush, while the other members wrap around through bot lane. Tunglash sets up for another deadly flourish, which Life has to flash away from. In Game 3, Mikyx on Rakan W's behind enemy lines and waits for the cooldown to come back up, and then attempts to catch BDD on Twisted Fate, which would lead to yet another flash burned. All 3 of these plays were well thought out by the G2 side as they look to use Jin's W at level 1 as follow-up CC. The only downside of this is that you now have W over Q at level 1, which means 2v2 bot lane is going to be a bit rougher, and that almost cost them first blood in Game 1. But if it gets you a kill or a flash and you can stabilize the lane, I'd say it's worth it. So, how easy was it to figure out what Gen G does in their level 1s? I went back and rewatched their group stage matches as well as their regional final win against T1 and their playoffs BO5 against DRX for a total of 14 matches. Let's start with blue side. This is their level 1 setup versus Fnatic in week 2, and their setup against LGD in week 1. Look familiar? Here are some other level 1s from them in their LCK regionals and playoff matches. If you haven't caught it yet, well, this is basically how they set up against G2 in Game 2. This is a 4-point opener, which is a fairly common line of scrimmage, another common iteration being the 5-point opener. The jungler usually moves up and places a ward on the top river pixel brush. No one sits in mid, and this is because usually their mid laner will stand in this brush here instead of the support. The bot lane then sits in the bot tri-brush. Why this setup? Well, it's because their bot lane loves to start in lane. They rarely leash, and they want to always be in lane ASAP to get level 2 first. They basically do this regardless of matchup. So G2 know that for the most part, they set up like this, and that's how they get Life's Flash in Game 2. Game 1 is slightly different, as Gen G decided to 3-man stack with their top laner in the ramp entrance of the jungle. This was a bit weird to me. It might mean that they're expecting an invade, but I don't think they win the level 1, especially not a 3v4 without their AD carry. So a level 1 similar to their Game 4 against DRX in LCK playoffs would have made more sense, where they dropped defensive wards and backed off to avoid conflict, expecting an invade because DRX had Nautilus. But yeah, most of their blue side level 1s looked like the one they did in Game 2. The only game where they changed up their strategy was against TSM in week 1, where they did a 5-man invade, presumably to get a deep ward and track Nidalee's pathing, but that didn't work as Senna cleared the ward. Aside from that, their other blue side level 1s are all very similar, aside from very minor stuff such as Life moving up to ward against T1 in Game 3, or shifting their support up to the mid laner's position so mid can help a top side sweep in Game 1 versus T1. You get the idea, usually same positions. So what about red side? That was the game Mikyx W'd behind and then tried to catch out Twisted Fate. Well, here's their red side setups against TSM and LGD in week 2, Fnatic in week 1, and their 4 red side matches from regionals and playoffs. Yep, they basically do the same thing every game. Now, the issue with these lines of scrimmage that Gen G do is that nobody sits in the mid lane, and this means you don't spot important movement that might happen, like players crossing from one side to another and invading the top side, like Fnatic did against them in week 1, or someone sneaking into the mid lane side brush like G2 did to ultimately catch out and burn BDD's flash. The fact Gen G never got punished before this event is also pretty bad. It means that it probably never got punished in scrims either, which might signify a bigger issue within LCK, where teams just handshake too much or have a gentleman's agreement to never invade. Gen G's level 1s almost look like the ones your gold-ranked solo queue teams pull off when they think the game only starts at 1:30 when the minions get to lane. Newsflash, it starts before that. In any case, props to G2 for doing their due diligence with their prep and punishing these extremely stale and repetitive level 1s from Gen G. The use of Jin W was quite unique, and it got them 3 flashes in the process, despite meaning weaker early laning in the bot lane. That's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.